Hello everyone, this is ColdHaven, and today I wanted to share my first impressions of the new Star Wars game Squadrons, which was just released on October 2nd. To say that I was excited about this release is an understatement. This is somewhat of a childhood dream of mine, and so to actually see it and play it is amazing. But before we get into that, I just want to issue a spoiler warning. I'll be talking about elements of the game and part of the story mode. So if you don't want anything spoiled, here's your chance to duck out. Now, the story takes place roughly 2 to 4 years after the Battle of Endor, where the Death Star had been destroyed and the New Republic had been formed. They do mention Admiral Thrawn, which to my knowledge was actually a fictitious character written by Timothy Zahn in the Heir to the Empire trilogy of novels that came out, which are supposedly part of the Legends category, as in that they're the expanded universe and not necessarily canon. However, I also know that Admiral Thrawn shows up in Star Wars Rebels, which makes me unsure whether or not Squadrons takes place in the Legends universe or canon. It always is confusing to me, but I would like to think that it's in the canon universe. Now, Star Wars Squadrons came out on October 2nd, but we've been hearing about it for quite some time, and I have been watching it with great interest. When I was younger, and by younger I mean 5 years old, I remember going to the swimming pool with my friends to the arcade that was right outside the pizzeria, and while we ate little Tostino pizzas, we would play the arcades. There would be Crystal Castles and several other type of 80s type games, but there was also Star Wars. And in that arcade game, you were basically reliving the events from Star Wars 1 and 3 when you blow up the Death Star. It's very short, and I might show some footage up here for you to see the difference. But back then, I imagined just flying in an X-Wing and just getting into these epic battles that you saw on each of the movies. That's what I really liked. I know some people might have liked the fighting with the swords and the lightsabers and all that kind of stuff, but me, it was flying around in a cockpit. That was what was exciting. And what was amazing about Star Wars Squadrons is that it actually makes you feel that you're in that movie. Like, all the elements are there. Weaving in and out of asteroids and space junk, trying to avoid a missile lock or somebody coming in to get you, or somebody, one of the TIE fighters just screeching toward your direction, and just it's awesome. It's everything that I kind of was hoping for. As far as graphics go, I know that there are some players out there that have been saying that the frame rate drops them to about 30 FPS, and that it was really slowing down their system. But when I was playing, I really didn't see any stuttering, or it all seemed very fluid to me. I'm not sure what their systems are like or what consoles they're playing on, but I never really had a problem. It never even made me stop and check what the frame rate was. There was a few times it was a little jerky, but that was in the story mode, but it was only for a few seconds. There was never a time when I've been playing either the story mode or playing in multiplayer where it bothered me enough to where I had to stop and see what the frame rate was.
The fuck?
To me, it seemed all fluid, and I enjoyed the experience.
Really?
And as far as the scenery, the environment is just stunning. It looks so cinematic. It's beautiful. There isn't a single scene when I was playing either the story mode or multiplayer where I just wanted to stop and take a look at everything. And it was beautiful. Just the environment that you're in and the playground that they essentially hand to you. Because like you can see in some of the footage that I have, that there's asteroids or there's wreckage that's laying about that you can just weave in and around with your X-Wing or TIE Fighter, and it just gives you just a big playground to work with. For the most part, character animations seem to be pretty smooth. The character quality isn't what you would expect from a 3D shooter, because you're only seeing them from one direction for the most part. And then whenever they walk off scene, it kind of looks a little like they got a green screen behind them or something. But, you know, I can put that aside because that's not the main point of why I bought this game. Some people might consider things like that, but I really don't see that as a problem. As long as the voice acting, which I'll get into in a little bit, as long as the voice acting is good, and as long as the character models look presentable, and they do. For the most part, when you're talking with them, they look real. They're smooth. The mouths moved in perfect sync with the words, so that I believe that they were actually talking to me. The scenes when you're in the hangars, you've got all sorts of things going on, highly detailed. Like, you got people up in the rafters with brooms and stuff, cleaning, and you've got people walking in and around the different areas, and you've got droids hanging out, and it just looks like lively activity. And speaking of detailed, the cockpit is, of course, where it shines. This is where you'll be spending most of your time. And there is an exceptional amount of detail here. They spent a good amount of time looking at motion stills, I'm sure, from the movies. Everything looks pretty much like it's in the movies. It sounds like it's in the movies. When your ship starts suffering damage, you'll start seeing smoke, and you'll see electrical flares, or you'll see fire crop up. If you hit something, your windshield might crack. The lighting is phenomenal. Whenever you turn around, everything in the cockpit, the lighting moves with it and gives it a real sense that you're there in the cockpit. I was unable to test this out with VR because I do not have a VR headset. I can just imagine how awesome of an experience it is to do it from VR. The sound in the game is truly wonderful. The level of detail that they put into the entire work, from both the graphics and sound, you can tell that they spent as much time as possible detailing this game so that it is as much an immersive experience for the player as possible. The music is phenomenal and is quality in line with any of the trilogies, prequels, or anything Star Wars for that matter. It sounds unique in its own way, but the thematic music is still there, both for the Empire and for the Rebels, which are now the New Republic. And the music is so good, it's not bothersome. I've played games where after a while I want to turn the music off because it's highly repetitive. Not this. Not this at all. In fact, it's as much of the background as the scenery and environment that you're in. And it never makes it feel out of place at all. It's so good that I went online and bought the soundtrack for Star Wars Squadrons. I suggest you check it out. It's both on Google Play and iTunes. I checked that this morning, and they're on both platforms. If you like the music in Squadrons, I would suggest getting it. It's only about $11, I believe, on Google Play. Despite the issues that some players might have with the story mode being believable or interesting, one thing that cannot be said is that the voice acting is poor. It's not. The voice acting in Star Wars Squadrons is quite good, and there are quite a few familiar voices if you listen in there. I felt that they put a good amount of effort, even into the minor characters. All in all, I like the voice acting, and I like the characters for it. And the detail doesn't end there. It seemed to be very important for this developer to make this sound, like I said, immersive. Whenever you blow up an enemy fighter, if you're flying through the wreckage, you're going to hear the clatter of glass and debris on your windshield and hull, which I think is a nice touch and something I haven't seen in any other previous fighter games that I've played, like Elite Dangerous. It's just not there, and it just adds to the believability, and it makes you feel like you're present in that cockpit. And I think that's really what they were focused in on, and they did it exceptionally well. While you're in the middle of fighting, you'll hear updates, um, and it's not as obtrusive as you think it would be. You'll see their hologram show up in your cockpit, and they'll talk to you, and they'll give you mission briefs. You'll hear droids. You'll hear alarms going off, perspective of both the rebels and the Empire. And they'll be very familiar to you. You'll recognize them immediately. Even down to how you make switches and press buttons sounds just exactly like from the movies. They paid close attention, because I think they know that we would be. All in all, I think both add to the experience of the game. Reading on Twitter and other social media, I've noticed that there's a point of contention for story mode. They believe that it's uninspired and predictable. But my opinion of the story is that it's entertaining and I enjoy it. I really didn't stop to consider how predictable it is. But once it was brought to my attention, I thought, well, really, what can you do with a military-oriented game? You're dealing with ships, fighter squadrons, fleet battles. The drama that's usually played out with the Jedi is not going to take place here. It's all going to be around military strategy, which I realize bores people to tears, unlike me, which I kind of enjoy. So maybe that's the difference, and the reason why I enjoyed the story mode more than most. I would have liked to learn a little bit more about the backgrounds of the characters. In fact, they released a CGI story short for Gray, one of the Imperial pilots for the Titan Squadron. And I loved it. I was like, why wasn't this included in the game as an unlockable or something like that? Maybe they added it after the fact. I hope they continue to do that and add more profiles for some of the characters in the game that they really didn't go into their background or flesh out very well. All in all, if you bought Star Wars Squadrons, let's face it, you didn't buy it for the story. You bought it to fight other players. It's kind of what it was sold on, and I think that is one of the reasons why the price isn't $60 like a lot of AAA games are. And this is coming from a AAA developer. So I think they realize that. Some people have even said and equated the story mode to being a more creative tutorial. And I don't think that criticism is off base. If it is, that's wonderful. After all, the main selling point for this game was multiplayer. So having you go through a story mode to kind of give you a taste for the different types of fighters and things that you can do and type of equipment that you can use is perfectly fine with me. I'd rather do that than click through this thing and that thing and, oh, you can do this and you can do that. And yeah, give me story mode. I'm fine with it. I don't care if it's good or bad. But to be fair, I haven't played through the entire story yet. I kind of got sidetracked about 5 hours in. I've played 12 hours of it, but I got sidetracked and started playing fleet battles. And I really haven't had a chance to go into dogfighting. So I'm not exactly sure what that experience is like. but I've heard some people say that the resolution at the end of the story wasn't that good. And it might not be. I don't know. I think the purpose that it serves, it's good. You don't go to a Chinese buffet looking for broccoli salad. Or good broccoli salad, I should say. You don't go to a Chinese restaurant looking for gourmet pizza. So, expecting a well fleshed out, long, dramatic story from a squadron based game, I think is reaching. Or at the least expecting too much. EA knew who their base was, and they built the game on that premise. I would suggest that if you're more interested in Star Wars and a good story, to check out Fallen Order. Another Star Wars game that I haven't completely finished the story mode in, but at least you'll have all the drama that you're looking for. One criticism that I have for story mode is the fact that the explanations for certain maneuvers are either not detailed enough or will halt the game every few seconds to explain itself. Remember playing and trying to just fight and use the ship, and it kept on stopping me. And it's really good that they were telling me these things, but stopping it every few seconds was getting annoying. I somehow feel that there could have been a better way to pull this off. And whenever they didn't explain well enough, one example is whenever they showed you how to slide. That's whenever you put your engines to max, you boost, and then you cut engines, turn to the left, and slide. It's kind of a maneuver that's very similar to a tactic that I've seen in Battlestar Galactica with the Vipers, where they turn back around to face their enemy. And it's a very valuable thing, but it made me run through it about 10 times until I got it exactly the way it expected. And that was kind of the problem somewhat in the story mode, was that there were things that it expected you to do, and until you hit it, or you went about it in the exact way that they thought you should have done it, then you won't get to pass it. Another example is when I was supposed to follow one of the squad leaders. Well, I was kind of confused because at first I was following one, and then they wanted me to switch to another. Well, I flew off in circles around one of my squad mates, and they kept following me. And I was like, what in the world? We're just going around in a circle. Meanwhile, the fellow that I was supposed to follow kept going straight. So I had to catch up to them. But it wouldn't continue because we weren't at the area that we're supposed to be. I had to actually restart the area that I was in and then follow that squad leader. And when we got to the point that we were supposed to be, then the next part of the game continued. It's either too detailed or not detailed enough. I guess that's just a gripe. I figured it out in the end. It just was a little bit annoying. Now, multiplayer. I played probably I've played a total of 12 hours. I've probably played at least 6 of those are probably multiplayer. At first, it starts you off playing against AI. You can have a co-op with a team of other players, but you won't be able to face off against other players until you've gotten to level 5, which I think is a great way to handle gaining experience. That way, people start at a certain experience level. They'll know some of the things first. It's a pretty good tool, I think. And there are several of those types of tools implemented into multiplayer, which I'll go over, that really intrigued me and I think are interesting. One key element that I liked about matchups was the fact if somebody shows up and decides that they don't want to play as the New Republic, or they don't want to play as an Imperial, and quits, they don't get points. They are marked as losing the battle. Also, if anybody's waiting in the queue, they'll be put into the fight. One of the first battles I did, it worked exactly that way, that somebody had quit, and I was able to fill their slot. But there's a very unique and creative way to deal with people that just quit in the middle of a battle. It keeps it fun for those who are playing, and it rewards those who continue to play all the way to the end because you'll get points at, whenever you finish, whether you won or you didn't win. As long as you finish it, you'll wind up getting points and experience points, which can later lead to unlocking different content. It seems that EA took a tactic from Doom Eternal. By unlocking content the more you play, the more points you get, the more you play, the more challenges that you complete will help you unlock other content in the game. I really like this feature as it seems to reward you for playing the game. I like that about Doom Eternal. I like that about Star Wars Squadrons. You go in, you play a couple rounds, and say you want to unlock a certain helmet that looks cool, or maybe there's a paint job for your X-Wing that you want to get to make it look snazzy and stand out, or maybe you want to play as an alien character, or maybe you want to have a special Millennium Falcon air freshener dangling from your cockpit. There's so many different elements for that, but there's also unlockables. You'll get, the more you play, you'll be able to unlock certain content which will allow you to upgrade your fighter. So it rewards you for playing, and it feels rewarding. Even if your team doesn't win, you feel like you've accomplished something, and I think that is what will keep people playing longer. And it's a good tactic, and I'm glad to see that it was implemented here. If I'm not mistaken, they have both weekly and monthly challenges. You check it on the board, much like you do at Doom Eternal, and you see what's offered and what you can get, and so make sure you check that out if you get the game. What I got obsessed with was fleet battles. They remind me heavily of League of Legends. There isn't specifically lanes, per se. There's different tactics to this, but it will feel very familiar to anybody who's played League of Legends. You go in, you attack, say you get destroyed, you wait 15 seconds, then you respawn. Except, unlike with the annoying League of Legends, it takes forever, seemingly, for you to respawn and then traverse the entire map in order to get back to where you were. It doesn't feel like that at all. The resolution of the game is important and imperative. You see that through the different tactics of fleet battles. As you go on, you will, both cruiser and, I can't remember the name of the Republic ship, but they steadily move closer and closer together, meaning that the resolution, something's going to have to give. Something's going to have to come to a close. They don't stay far apart for the entire thing. They move closer and closer together, which means that enemy craft can get there closer, quicker, but it also means it can do more damage to you. So it's very interesting. There wasn't a single match that I've played yet where from the beginning I knew that my team was going to win. It was very much a tug of war. That's how it feels like. And you'll see on screen that up there at the top, it very much is a tug of war. What they call morale. Attacking whenever your team has the highest morale, whenever you've damaged or destroyed enough of the enemy fighters or craft, like their cruisers or frigates or whatever, your team gets higher morale, which means then it's time for you to go and attack their main, like, Star Destroyer. If you try to do that beforehand, it is possible, but odds are you're going to get shot down very quickly. It's always best to do an assault whenever your team has the highest morale. And as you've probably seen on screen, while you're waiting for those 15 seconds, you can do several things. You can like at the pause screen, well, there's not really a pause screen, but in the middle of a battle, you can stop and look at the map and see where everybody's at. That map shows up after you've been destroyed, and you can see where everybody's at, how close the different cruisers are together, what kind of the overall map of the battle is. And you can see people who've are waiting for themselves to respawn. That time also you can switch out to another starfighter. Like say if you've been flying several sorties and not getting anywhere as an A-wing, you can switch to a bomber, Y-wing, or something like that, and have a go at it like that. It's important in this game to be cognizant of what your squadron has. If you're all X-wings, yeah, you can do an assault that way, but it would be easier if you had a few bombers too, especially if you had a bomber that was shooting ion bombs and cuts through the shields real quick so the X-wings can come in there and take out a raider real quick. Working together is advised. I haven't really worked on voiceover yet. I strictly was just trying to play and get a feel for the game. I would suggest that you play around with each of the different fighters. And for that, playing the story mode actually does work out quite well. You wind up playing at least one of the fighters with different outfits, different types of upgrades throughout the story mode. At least it has been so far for me. But play around and see which is more your style, and then break out sometimes. Sometimes you'll have to maybe, instead of running for support, maybe you are the X-wing, or maybe you do the A-wing and kind of guard, like I was doing for a while, just guarding our capital ships. I found out that I was leaning towards interceptor and A-wing types, that I was pretty good at it. But I wouldn't stay in that particular fighter if everybody needed something a little bit different. I even tried Y-ring and I did horribly at it. I'm just going to have to do more practice. And that's essentially what it comes down to, is practice. The more you practice, the better you'll be, just like any type of game. Now, I'm not going to go into an in-depth analysis of each of the mechanics for the game. I might do something like that later on, the type of tactics I've learned, things that have worked for me. I might do something like that later on. I'm definitely going to be playing this. I'm going to be wasting a lot of time playing this game. I can already tell. I love it. It's wonderful. There's a few things that are holding it back. I know some people are really upset that the HOTAS support isn't where it could be. And I feel you. I've got a HOTAS also. However, Thrustmaster has even released their own mapping that they're suggesting for Squadrons, so make sure you check that out. It might be helpful to you, it might not. I myself haven't hooked up my HOTAS yet. I found the Xbox controller to be quite intuitive, that I was able to accomplish quite a bit with just the Xbox controller. And I was pleasantly surprised with how intuitive it was. I've played games like Elite Dangerous and a couple other fighter games like that, and it never... Using the Xbox controller was almost ridiculous. They somehow were able to break it down and make it more simplistic. And I like it. I might try it with the HOTAS at some point, but I don't know if EA is actively working on HOTAS support. I hope that they are. And I hope that other players will be able to play it the way that they would enjoy it the most. For now, I can say that if you want to play it, Xbox controller works really well. And I think you might enjoy it that way in the meantime. Before I go, though, there is one tactic that I learned that was very beneficial that other people might already know. And I just never saw it very often. But flying back to your hangar, you can go back to resupply yourself, fix your hull, shields, switch out to another fighter, and you can do it mid-battle and not have to sit there like a sitting duck underneath one of the supply frigates. I use this tactic quite a bit, especially whenever I was about to have my butt beat and I had missiles locked on. I've boosted and rammed into the hangar and saved my butt a few times. But overall, I am very pleased with this. I've wanted a game, a Starfighter game like this for so long. I just didn't think that it was possible. I know there's been other iterations and people probably enjoyed them too, but this is just phenomenal. It feels like I'm there in almost every single way that I can think of. It's enjoyable. I don't get tired of playing it. I don't get upset when I get killed. There's plenty of players that have been playing these types of games longer than me. And but I love it. I love it a lot. And I really hope that you consider playing it as well. Could always use more pilots. It's fun. If you've ever watched any of the Star Wars, especially the original Star Wars, and dreamed of being in an X-Wing and going after your target, being chased by a few TIE fighters and having to loop around anything at all. Wreckage, asteroids, just outmaneuvering, any of that type of combat is this would definitely be the game for you. Star Wars Squadrons really puts you in the action. It makes you feel like you're one of the fighter pilots in the Star Wars universe. And I've never really felt that before, anywhere. I just haven't. I haven't been as immersed as I have with this game. It's beautiful. It sounds beautiful. It's epic. And I would suggest it to anybody that has ever played a starfighting sim. Ever. This is definitely something to catch. And it's really not that expensive. At about like, what was it? $49? $45 on Steam? That's a steal. Most AAA titles are at least $60. And for them to be that less of expensive, I would get that and the soundtrack if you enjoy it like I did. I really love it. I really don't know what else to say. But if you've played Star Wars Squadrons, please leave in the comment section what your experience has been with it. I've heard others of having problems with their computers and their consoles, that some of them are freezing, some of them aren't loading. Let me know what's going on with yours and what things that they could address. What are the things that you love about Star Wars Squadrons? Leave that in the comment section. And until next time, this is ColdHaven. Stay safe, and I'll catch you next time. Goodbye.